Mishnah Ismail Cotton, Perek Beis, Chapter 2, Mishnah Hey, Mishnah 5. I'd like to dedicate today's Mishnah in honor of Leo Silverman's birthday on Yom Kippur. Today's Mishnah will be in honor of your birthday.
No birthday cake.
No birthday cake tomorrow, but okay. But we're doing this in honor of your birthday today.
Said the same thing last year.
Okay, good. Okay. Mishnah Hey. Mechapenes Hakatziyes Bekash. We're continuing with activities that one may perform on Chol Hamoed. So the first example is one may cover cut figs spread out in a field with straw. The reason you're doing that is protect them from the rain. Here's the process. In earlier times, figs were commonly dried and pressed into cakes to preserve them for long periods of time. Okay, that's what they did. They dried them and they pressed them together. The tops of the figs would be cut off so that the juice could drain, and they were then spread out in a field to dry in the sun, after which they would be pressed together in cakes. To protect the figs from the rain, they would be covered with straw. This is permitted on Chol Hamoed, even though covering the figs with straw involves considerable effort. It may not be what we call melacha, forbidden work, but it definitely has a lot of effort involved, which would be a reason alone, on its own, to not allow it to be done on Chol Hamoed. Nonetheless, and even if the figs are not needed for Yontif, nonetheless, doing so comes under the permit of Davar Ha'avod, a potential loss. That's what allows us to do this big job of covering them up with the straw. Rabbi Yehuda says, Af ma'abin. Rabbi Yehuda says you may even make a thick pile of cut figs in order that the top figs protect those underneath from rain, even though this involves more exertion than covering them with straw. Meaning that's another step you would do. You'd pile them up in a way that the top ones are protecting the bottom ones from the rain coming onto them. It would be another level of protection. I don't know if it's another level or a different level, but it involves more work, more effort. Nonetheless, Rabbi Yehuda says you can even do that again to prevent the loss to the figs from the rain. Next case. Moichrei Peiros. Those who sell fruit, ksus, clothing, v'kelim, and utensils. Moichrem betzina l'tzarech hamoed. They may be sold only betzina, in private, for the needs of Yontif, but not publicly. That means that even when you can sell things, and you're allowed to sell them because people need them for Yontif, and therefore, since they need it for the holiday, you could sell them on Yontif. Nonetheless, you have to sell them betzina. You have to sell them in private. Now, here you have a store. What does it mean selling it in private? So the explanation is now this is how they bring down here in the notes. That is, one may open only one door of his store, keeping the other door locked. Apparently, the custom was to have more than one door to the store, and you only open up one entrance. The other entrance remains locked. That is called private, meaning not allowing it to be so public as usual. Now, the explanation to this is the following. As we learned in the previous Mishnah, Chol Hamoed is permitted to sell things that are needed for the festival. However, if merchants who sell throughout the year were to sell their merchandise publicly on Chol Hamoed, people might assume that they are just going about their usual business, selling items that are not needed for the festival. Therefore, our Mishnah states that such merchants may sell these items only in a somewhat private manner. That'll make it clear that they're not doing regular business. Then in the brackets they add, people who are not regular merchants, on the other hand, may sell things needed for Chol Hamoed even publicly. If you're not a person who typically does business and you're just doing something, you're like I say, they're not a regular merchant. And now you're selling a couple of things, but again, they're needed for Yontif. They're not going to suspect of doing regular business, so you don't do regular business. And therefore, that person could even do it publicly. Okay, next. Hatzayodin v'adoy shoshais v'agoy rosais. Oisem betzina l'tzarech hamoed. These people, they're called trappers, rain pounders, and bean grinders, may do their work again in private for the needs of Yontif, but not publicly. So what are we talking about here? So let's go. What are Tzayodin or trappers? Okay, they trap animals. Mm-hmm. Grain pounders, what are they for? These are people who pound wheat kernels into grits. And then the grits are made into whatever you make them with.
How many grits?
Bean grinders are, as they say, bean grinders. Now, although the work should be permitted if it is done for festival needs, since these people generally work with large quantities, it may appear to onlookers that they are engaged in their usual weekday activities. We therefore require them to work in private. A private person doing this for his own needs, however, may perform these tasks publicly, for generally does not deal with large quantities. Thus, it is clear to everyone that he is performing the work for the needs of the festival. Okay? So that's the point. If you're a professional, right, you're a person who does this for a profession, then you can't do it publicly because they're going to think you're doing regular work. Private person typically does it for what he needs. And therefore, if the private person is doing it on Yontif, doing it on Cholamoid, people will assume you need it for that time, for Cholamoid or closely for Yontif. Rabbi Yosi says, Hey Mechmir al Atzman. All these professions we just mentioned, trappers, grain pounders, and bean grinders, they accepted a stringency upon themselves not to do the work even in private. Which means even though they are permitted to work in private, they extended the prohibition upon themselves to include even what is done in private, and are therefore forbidden to work at their jobs on Cholamoid even in private. Rabbi Yosi had understood, or Rabbi Yosi held, that these workers, they had accepted upon themselves a stringency as a group. As a group, they accepted upon themselves a stringency. We're not doing any of this, even in private. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, that would then mean that these people, if there were such a thing that this whole group of people accepted, if this is what they accepted, then that would mean that they would be forbidden to do their work on Cholamoid because they accepted this practice. But the Bartanura says that Allah is not like Rabbi Yosi, and all these people we mentioned may do their work in private. Now, we quickly one halach and Chofetz Chaim. Okay. Okay. Halabazeh shekasavnu. This prohibition that we have just written, the prohibition of the prohibition of speaking lashon hara, which is the Torah expresses it by saying, "Do not go around as a rachel," which literally means a peddler. It means don't go around spreading things about people. This is the specific prohibition for lashon hara, for rechilas. When you speak bad about people, the specific prohibition the Torah gives against that is what we just mentioned, the previous halacha, do not walk around as a talebearer. Avol, b'lav hachi, but even without that prohibition, there are many other prohibitions or positive commandments. Shuhu oiver aleim, that a person transgresses or does not fulfill or goes against the fulfillment, ayidei sipur hara hazeh, by telling over these bad reports. So the point is that the Chofetz Chaim is saying, and this is really his introduction that we'll, Mitzvah Hashem, get back to, was that when you speak lashon hara, there's a specific prohibition, but then depending on the situation, there are a number of other prohibitions or positive commandments that you can be transgressing while speaking lashon hara. So the point here is that there's a specific prohibition for speaking lashon hara, and then there are many other prohibitions that can be added on that you can be transgressing, in addition to the specific prohibition against lashon hara that you can be transgressing when you speak lashon hara. Have a wonderful day. Have a meaningful and easy fast.